Warden is a relatively new mob that was added to the game to watch over an ancient city in Minecraft. He's a pretty creepy mob that has unique mechanics. You'll learn who is he, how he was created, how many predecessors he has, and that there are 3 other Wardens in the Minecraft universe. About which mob to make the next video? Write in the comments. Let's get started. Let's start by taking a look at its characteristic. This is a hostile monster with a height of almost 3 blocks, which has 500 units of life. That is 250 hearts. The number of lives Warden at the moment makes it the most survivable mob of all existing, but in the boundaries of the Java version of the game. On Bedrock, the first place is still taken by Wither. On the hard difficulty level, he has as much as 300 hearts. Warden appears by summoning him with a Sculk Shrieker in the deep dark biomes. If you can defeat him, he will drop only 5 of the experience units and 1 Sculk Catalyst after his death. Yes, the developers do not want you to fight him, only run away in fear. After all, this monster has 2 types of attack, melee and ranged. On the hard difficulty level, the melee attack will deal 22.5 hearts of life, while the ranged attack will deal 7.5. Now let's talk a little bit about Warden's appearance. This mob has not quite standard mechanics of spawning, I would even say unique. It can be summoned by any player that is in survival or adventure mode. To do this, it is enough that the naturally generated Sculk Shrieker was activated exactly 4 times. After that, the game will summon Warden. The typical sign of his appearance will be the sound of falling rocks and a growl like this. This mob has a very beautiful animation of appearance, and quite creepy, I would say. It takes almost 7 seconds, and during this time, you can either hide or run away. During the appearance animation, Warden cannot take damage. It is important to note that he will only appear if there are no other Wardens within a 24-block radius of the activated Sculk Shrieker. Returning to the topic of Sculk Shrieker, I would like to add that the counter of warning screamers is tied not to the block itself, but to the player. That is, you can't cheat the game. Activating 1 Shrieker in one place, and the second in a completely different place. The game will log 2 warnings. As I said, after the 4th time, the game summons Warden. Even if you decide to place torches, this will not save you either. His spawn is not affected by the level of lighting. After the 4th warning, the game makes up to 20 attempts to summon the Warden in an area of 11x 1311 blocks. During each attempt, the game selects 1 column on the Y-axis and looks to see if it has the right characteristics. There must be no liquids, lava, and water, and there must be plenty of space on the top block of that column for Warden to appear at full height. If you are suddenly afraid of Warden, or for example, you are a parent who does not want his child to meet with such a danger, there is a game rule when creating the world. It is designed for the appearance of this monster. During the game, you can also set this rule with this command. Sculk Shriekers and darkness effects will still be present in the game, only they will not be able to summon Warden. Now let's take a moment to look at the behavior of this mob. It has a specific behavior. After being summoned, it will start wandering around randomly, trying to sniff out the player or pick up any vibrations. If Warden was able to detect the player by scent or vibration, he will chase the player, trying to destroy him. He will be able to squeeze through a space 3 blocks high and 1 block wide with no problem. This is cool, but often players dig tunnels 1 by 2 blocks, so it feels like a bit of a miss. Like I said, the developers tried to create an environment of horror and despair so that no player would even try to destroy Warden because of the difficulty. These guys are immune to fire and lava. You won't be able to set him on fire or drown him in lava. The same goes for water. They are good at swimming, and even if you summon him in water, he'll pop up in a flash. But if you put him in an area where there is no surface, it will suffocate after a while. He is not affected by knockback enchantments, even those applied in the creative mode. If ordinary mobs, to put it mildly, are not very smart and will not be able to pass through rails, cacti, and magma blocks, the last 2 are understandable. They deal damage, but the rails are a mystery that probably no one will ever solve. Warden, however, is much smarter than all the mobs and will be able to get through all these blocks if he chases his victim. The atmosphere of horror and hopelessness will also be recreated with the darkness effect. The player will first encounter it when accidentally or intentionally emits a vibration that is picked up by the Sculk Shrieker. Warden will then cast the darkness effect for 12 seconds on all players within a 20-block radius every 6 seconds. Darkness effect does not equal blindness effect. They are different. After all, the darkness kind of pulses with the heartbeat of the Warden. This is an important aspect of this monster. Warden's heartbeat isn't a simple thing either. Originally, Brandon Pierce, better known as King B-Dogs, he's the one who created this mob, wanted Warden to hear the player's heartbeat. How would this be implemented? Most likely through effects. The player would have a fear effect, which would cause the player's heartbeat to sound, and the vibrations or sounds would be heard by Warden. Brandon thought this was a bit inappropriate, so the heartbeat was added to the Warden. By the way, while we're on the subject of sounds, that heartbeat actually belongs to Samuel Aberg, the lead sound engineer at Mojang. He simply took a contact microphone, put it to himself, and recorded his heartbeat. Back to the mechanics of the Warden's heartbeat. The heart pulses in rhythm with the effect of darkness, or you could say the other way around, it's not that important. What the player needs to know is that the faster Warden's heart beats, the closer he is to the target he wants to destroy. Warden will listen to all existing vibrations within a 16-block radius and try to find their source. There are exceptions, for example, other Wardens. It will not react to their vibrations or to armor stands, dying mobs, as well as those players who are in creative or spectator mode. It will still not be able to pick up vibrations from players who are sneaking or jumping while walking. If you're sneaking and shoot something or get hit, it won't pick up those vibrations either. But there's a problem. In addition to picking up vibrations, it can also smell its target. Yes, from time to time. If the Warden is not targeting anyone, it will display a sniffing the player animation that lasts about 5 seconds. If during this animation, the player is sneaking somewhere within his radius, he will rush to the player. This ability has a cooldown time that lasts from 5 to 10 seconds. Now let's get into the mechanics of Warden tracking players in more detail. It's quite cleverly organized. Warden has an anger bar. It is the one responsible for aggression to the player. It has exactly 150 units in it. When the Warden heard a vibration, it will add exactly 10 units of anger if it was a vibration from a projectile, if not, as much as 35 units. However, if he heard 2 projectile vibrations within 5 seconds, he will also add 35 units. I almost forgot about one important thing. Wardens react to both players and mobs, but always there's that but. Warden prioritizes the player. Even if a mob's anger bar is full, he will still prioritize the player. Once the player or the mob dies, and when the player goes into creative or spectator mode, the Warden's anger bar will decrease by 1 unit every second. Warden will attack mobs that attack him, or push him in some way. Once a mob damages Warden intentionally or accidentally, Warden will add 100 units of anger to that mob and then attempt to destroy it. Once Warden reaches 80 units of anger to a certain player, he will roar, then add another 20 units and start chasing his target at high speed, after which he is very hard to escape, as it is as if he can see you, even though he is picking up vibration from other mobs or players. Now let's talk about the history of the creation and development of Warden. Initially, the developers created a very different mob, Stalker. They wanted to create something asymmetrical which could appear anywhere, only underground. The idea was so, if you move and make noise, it follows you on your rails as soon as the player stopped. Stalker would lose interest and go on his monster business. But unfortunately, it was too convoluted to create a stalking mechanic. Due to the fact that Stalker was very tall, taller than the Enderman, and as you know, caves, thing variable, especially when the player decides to dig a small tunnel on one block. It was difficult to create a mechanics of chasing. After some thought, the developers decided to add the ability to change his body, fold like a transformer with the ability to pass in one block. As for me, it's unique and creepy at the same time, but they still had to reject this idea, because one of the main rules of the game, players must have a choice. Not everyone wants to play a horror game and try to escape from Stalker. Another question arises, if we should have a choice, what about the phantoms that appear if we do not sleep for 3 days? We don't really have a choice. As soon as it came to the new biome, Deep Dark, the developers decided to improve the Stalker. His new improved version was called the Hollowed. This particular mob was closer to the Warden that we all love and fear so much. He had no eyes, only a creepy and giant toothy mouth and small holes, from which you could see the animation of the endgate and portal. The developers, King Bedogs in particular, were inspired by a thing called trypophobia, which is literally a fear of cluster holes. That's why he had holes on his body, to intimidate the player. The sounds of the Hollowed made were not like the sounds we hear from Warden. They were more eerie. Please listen to this. Because of the too intimidating look, this idea had to be rejected as well. Therefore, the developers decided to combine better features of the two mobs, namely Hollowed and Stalker, to get Warden. But of course, they decided to add other elements. For example, the horns, they were borrowed from insects. Some of them have antennae, ways to pick up vibrations. After all, they decided to make him completely blind, which is why he has to use his other senses to track the victim. By the way, this guy's not blind. If we fly into him in spectator mode, we will be able to see this wonderful and creepy world of the ancient city. All the existing sounds that the Warden makes and the Sculk blocks were created by the same Samuel Aberg. He simply recorded the sounds he came up with in his head. And then, with the help of superimposed effects, we got the creepy sounds. That's what it was.
And then with the layers of effects, it became like...
Originally, the developers had planned to add Warden back in the Nether update, but because it was already too big, this decision was postponed. By the way, we were supposed to find him just in the Nether. In the early stages of design, this mob was described as blind piglin, able to react only to sounds. There was also a separate biome for him. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find information on which biome was meant, a new one from the ones we were added in the Nether update, or a completely new biome. In addition, Brandon also talked about some of the mechanics that were abandoned. For example, if the player could get out of Warden's field of view, he would be affected by the mind blur effect, which made the player move randomly. When this player wanted to move forward, he would go backwards and so on. The idea was rejected because they found the mechanics too complicated. Then there was an idea to allow Warden to destroy blocks so that he could chase players for a long time. This idea was abandoned for two reasons. They did not want to introduce another mob capable of destroying blocks, and the second, because of the complexity of implementation. There was also the mechanic of Warden hiding the hunger bar in the players' lives. But as a whole, that sounds a bit dumb to me. And in general, Brandon wanted the Warden to be completely invulnerable to player attacks. But after thinking about the idea, he came to the conclusion that it just didn't fit the description of a sandbox game. Jasper Boerstra, the lead artist in Mojang, said in a video that Warden went through more than 175 different concepts, all because the developers wanted Warden to be something special, and they wanted it to be scary, beautiful, and of course, ugly cute. That wasn't all, because in addition to the Hollowed and Stalker, there was a third mob, the Shadow. He was a kind of humanoid, translucent mob with glowing eyes. He was intended to be a more ambient mob that stood in the dark where only his eyes were visible. Furthermore, he would slowly disappear as the player approached him. He also imitated the noise of other mobs, giving the impression that they were right behind the player. Shadow became not so much an iteration of the Warden, who by then was called Stalker, as a completely separate mob, though in some concepts he was supposed to sort of complement him, living in ancient cities and helping the Stalker. Eventually it was abandoned, figuring it would be more of an annoyance than a scare, and so that the team could better focus on developing the Stalker. This mob sounds great to me. I mean, we're not annoyed by phantoms at all, are we? Okay, they're just trying not to make the same mistakes. As I said in the beginning, in the Minecraft universe, there are several Wardens. For example, in the game Minecraft Story Mode, there is a character named Warden. He is the antagonist in the second part. In the game Minecraft Dungeons, there is Frost Warden. It is an ancient geomancer that can be found during ancient hunts. All of them are strikingly different from the Warden we know. But here's the last one. The third one, perhaps not. He too is part of the Minecraft Dungeons game. Unfortunately, no one has seen him. In the description to One Sword, it says that the Warden is the villain no one has seen. He is the one who uses this sword somewhere in the halls of High Block to interrogate his foes. I can safely say that Warden is one of my favorite mobs. He really looks very fresh against the rest. All the more, the way of its development was truly not easy. But as for me, came out wonderful. While you're waiting for a new video, look at these. They are also very interesting. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and click on the bell. We'll hear from you again.